Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns, and I guess in addition to saying I'm Alan Miller back with you, I could also look at today's guest and say he's back. Joe Atkins, who's been with us many times. He has been with us as an attorney. He's been with us as a political expert. He's been with us as a 14-year legislator in the Minnesota House. And he is now Commissioner-elect for Dakota County. And he asked to come on today because he has a new Labrador puppy that he wants to discuss.
Yeah, right.
Joe, back again.
Thank you for having me back. I always enjoy joining you.
I should say, in fairness of disclosure, that the Atkins law firm is also counsel for the Millers. So.
Yep. And I think we do a fine job for the Millers, don't we?
I think you do.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate the endorsement.
I haven't served a day in jail since you people have represented us.
It's a good sign.
So, any trepidations, nervousness about starting a new adventure as a senior citizen?
You know, honestly, I'm quite excited about it. I am so looking forward to being on the Dakota County Board. The part of that comes from all of the folks that I talked to, as I literally knocked on 14,740 some doors the last several months, and I don't know that I heard a negative comment about
four
Dakota.
pair of shoes.
3 pairs of shoes.
I read
three pairs of shoes. I got started on the 4th pair. Walked enough miles to go to Chicago and back. Got bit by 2 dogs, both of which had all their shots. But it was and talked to thousands of great folks who had great things to say about Dakota County. So I got to the point, Alan, where I was telling folks probably by about June, I was saying, they'd say, well, what do you want to do at Dakota County? And I'd say, well, first thing I'm doing is taking the Hippocratic Oath of county commissioners, which is do no harm. Because it really is. I mean, the message I was hearing from most folks is they like Dakota County, they like living here, they like working here, they like raising their family here, they like the schools here.
They like the tax rate here also.
We do have the lowest tax rate per capita of any county in Minnesota. And you'll hear county commissioners say that all the time. But it's hard to do that, when you're trying to provide quality services to an expanding population. We're almost 500,000 people here now, and still manage to keep your tax rates at the lowest. And the better comparison is probably among the metro counties, and we're dramatically lower than our surrounding counties.
and you're now in District 4. Nancy Showeiler chose not to run again, and you did have a contested election from a first-time candidate, a very nice lady by the name of Holly Jenkins, who's been on this show multiple times, and I hope will undertake a career in politics. But you won going away, and it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, you're used to the legislature, which has been one of the most disappointingly partisan organizations that I have ever seen in state government. And although you, for some reason, managed to cross aisles and I think got more legislation of yours passed than anybody else in the legislature.
If you listen to the staff, and they're much better at keeping track of the data than we are, they tell me over the last 8 years I passed more bipartisan laws than any other legislator. And I told, somebody asked me, one of the reporters said, well, boy, that must be tough to do. How do you do that? I said, well, it's pretty complicated. You got to get up out of your desk, walk all the way over to the other side, and actually talk to people. But it's amazing when you sit down and talk, and you can, most folks faced with the same issues or the same set of facts, just thinking pragmatically and practically, will come to roughly the same conclusion. And so when you work on a number of issues, I was able to do that. But before we get off the campaign, by the way, I did want to say, people would ask me at the doorstep, well, who's your opponent? I'd say, it's Holly Jenkins. And they'd ask me, well, what do you think of her? And I said, I think the world of her. And Holly apparently was saying the same thing about me, and folks were just, it was such a contrast to some of the races that we had going on if you watch the TV.
Oh, for sure.
It's nice to be able to turn TV back on and watch Access to Democracy and things like that on the TV again, now that the elections are over. But we had, I thought, a really good campaign, a very positive campaign. Talked a lot about issues and a lot about transparency and what the county does and issues that count,
Well,
not
it's
just
interesting
trashing
how
each other.
Holly
like
got
that.
interested as an interested citizen, very involved in the Lebanon Hills dispute. And it sort of whetted her appetite for public office.
And she worked, I'll tell you, we both did, but she worked so hard, and her volunteers worked so hard. They ran a great campaign. They focused on issues that people care about, and I have nothing but great things to say about her. In fact, we were at the same county board meeting the other day, and we had coffee Monday morning, and I look forward to working with her.
And I think she has, with her personality and her drive, has a really good future in politics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I think she has a lot to contribute.
I fully expect. I don't know if she'll run for office necessarily. I just don't know. But I'm pretty certain that she's going to remain involved and active, and I think that's fantastic.
So you've been going to county commission meetings to sort of get your feet wet.
Yeah,
what have you discovered so far?
I'm attending the county board meetings. I'm also trying to do the state representative job because I'm in that through the end of December. And now we're talking about the possibility of special sessions and all kinds of things.
We've been talking about that for 2 years.
We have been. It's like Groundhog Day. I mean, every time
really...
I open up my emails, there's more talk of a special session possibly. And then practicing law, of course, because I've got to represent the Millers and a whole bunch of others. Although you don't have a lot of legal needs.
No,
it would sure help if you get in trouble more.
Fortunately,
I don't
that's
think
a good thing.
I don't think we need. Well, we don't need to worry about Sharon. You sometimes we worry about.
Wow,
but
that's true.
You know what though? The county, it's been fascinating. I mean, the first thing I want to do is this may sound strange to people. I just kind of want to do ride-alongs or kick the tires a little bit. I want to tour the jail. I don't want to go to jail, but I want to tour the jail. I want to do a ride-along with the sheriff. I met with Sheriff Leslie the other day and had I've met him many times before. But we had a great discussion. Met with the county attorney Backstrom and
Tim is a terrific guy, and he's been on multiple times.
Yeah, but I want to get in and see. So I want to go down to the IT department. I want to see what the human resources folks do. The folks that make the operation function. I want to go with the road crew and see what they're doing before you. So I'm not coming in with an axe to grind or, folks that are saying that are doing a bad job and we got to get rid of them or anything like that. I just want to go in and see what we can do, and if there's ways we can do it better, that's great. and we'll just try, like I said, take the Hippocratic Oath and first do no harm and try to improve it where we can.
Well, in terms of the commission, the county commission, just another layer of government, but obviously the county tax is an important part of what they do. What else does the county commission do?
Well, and actually that was the number one question that I got as I was going door to door was, what does the county do? And most folks, once you start talking about it, so it's county roads. You know, it's Pilot Knob and it's Cliff Road and it's Johnny Cake and it's all of the various roadways. It's county parks like Lebanon Hills and several others. There's trails and recreational things. Of course, it's the county sheriff. It's the county attorney's office. It's the libraries. And, you know, when you start walking people through it, they realize that they really do interact or know a lot about what the county's doing.
We have a great library system here in Dakota County.
We really do.
It is amazing because I have utilized it more in the last several years than ever before. And those librarians, volunteer or otherwise, will bend over backwards to accommodate you. You know, if they don't have a book, well, we don't have it in this office, they go online, oh, we can get that for you from St. Paul or wherever it is in the system, which is not in the county, but
I'll tell you, Alan,
they do a great job.
I hear that all the time. And there's many folks that, you know, it's one of the most utilized county functions that there is, and yet there's still some folks that have never walked through the door of our local libraries. Once they do, I guarantee them it's not your grandfather's library.
Right.
Not that there aren't books, and by the way, I still like to hold a book or a newspaper.
Yeah, I
I'm
do
kind of
too.
old-fashioned like that, but you know, there's all sorts of the electronic media. They've got terrific internet access, so you've got lots of kids who after school will be in there studying, not just messing around looking for video games.
They
or
have
whatever,
rooms
but they're
for
actually
private
doing stuff.
study, but they
There's-
have rooms for meetings.
Yeah, and a lot of students I know. Actually, my son, who just passed his final CPA exam, he passed all 4 out of the 4. Was spending day after day.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But he was in one of the conference room or one of the study rooms there at Inver Glen Library for many days studying for the CPA exams. So there's all sorts of things that our
Yeah.
libraries are doing or available to do.
So, and of course, the jail and the sheriff is a big part of the county. We happen to have a really good functioning sheriff's department here. You mentioned Tim Leslie, and he is a terrific sheriff. He's been a guest here probably half a dozen times. A former deputy sheriff by the name of, and we'll go right to St. Cloud with Blair Anderson.
Yeah.
Took us on a tour of their operation this week. And in fact, he's coming back as a guest. We're going to have Blair Anderson and Jim McDonald of Egan talking about the difference between an upstate police chief, and as he is now,
Yeah.
and a suburban police chief, as Jim McDonald is. And I think that should make for an interesting interview. And
Well, and I'll
two
tell you,
really
it's-
class acts.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Dakota County sheriffs and our local police officers have done a phenomenal job. And Dakota County is a safe place. Our crime statistics are pretty solid, and for the most part have been dropping on a per capita basis. But there are pockets that are challenging.
Yes, yes,
and
indeed.
so their jobs are not getting any easier. And the county attorney's office as well, facing more and more issues. A lot of mental illness, chemical dependency type issues at the root causes of some of these things as well. And I'd rather not end up with those folks in jail, but rather getting the sort of help that they need so that they can improve and move on with their life.
Now, the commission doesn't actually have anything to do with the courts, other than the fact that it furnishes courts. But the court officers, I don't know whether they're state or county employees. The judges, I know, are on a state level.
You hit it on the head, though, because there's kind of this hopefully cooperative situation that occurs where the county's budget impacts the courts, but the courts are actually a state function. And thus far, they've worked, for the most part, pretty well together over many decades now.
So this is a big new undertaking that I can see why you're excited, because
Well, I'll tell you
it
that
opens up all kinds of areas.
the
And
reason-
you don't have to really get involved in that partisan type of bickering that you endured in the legislature.
You hit on the head, probably the single most, it wasn't so much the partisanship, although that was a symptom of it. It was that when you get this color hair, you get a little less patient for taking, there were things that should take 2 weeks or 2 months that the county does in 2 weeks or 2 months, or the city does in 2 weeks, big issues, important issues, whether it's public safety stuff or road stuff, that would take 2 years or 5 years at the state level. If somebody asked me why I didn't run for Congress, and I said, well, I'd rather have a fork in my eye. You talk about, as frustrating as it is to have a process where folks are sometimes throwing sand on each other's axles. Now you have, you'd be one of 435, one of 535 if you include the Senate. And it's just this gridlock, and I'm hopeful maybe that things will start to change. We've got a President-elect that some folks really didn't like, but he did say one thing that was very appealing to folks.
Things are going to change whether we like it or not.
He was promising change. He was promising drain the swamp, give the lobbyists less power. And I was hearing that at the doorsteps.
I didn't think that draining the swamp meant taking the people who were in the swamp and making them part of your government.
Well,
be Goldman Sachs or otherwise.
Some of his appointees are surprising me a little bit, but there's certainly been a promise of change. If President Obama was promising change, it pales in comparison to what this President-elect is promising now. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch.
The new president and I are
of course. Now, when will he be on the show?
Well, we're working on that.
Did you got to
because
request
he doesn't
you need to tweet him.
He doesn't like media people, and I have refused to get into the tweet parade so far in life.
Yeah,
I've got a website and I've got my cell phone and all the others.
One rash comment away from being pilloried nationally or internationally, and I think if
it's probably as bad as being Hillaried, but it's
we need a drum.
Dum-dum.
But it's going to be an interesting period of time to watch. But I'm very much looking forward to because the county is, a lot of people don't realize that when you talk about roads and libraries and so forth, but they're on the front lines of so many of those issues. So many of the federal programs and the state programs, they say what they want to have done, but it's actually the counties and the cities that are doing it.
So you will have an office in Hastings?
I haven't actually seen it yet. I've been more out and about and going to meetings.
Yeah.
But there's an office in Hastings, but I still expect part of what drives me nuts is about D.C. is they head off to Washington, D.C., and then you don't see them anymore. So even though there's an office in Hastings, I expect to be in Eagan, I expect to be in Rosemont and Grove, the areas that I represent. And so you'll see me at the gas station and the grocery store. That's why I think the best government is that local level of government.
It'll be very interesting. And how many county commissioners are there?
7. And that changed, roughly 2 decades ago. They used to be 5, and now it's 7. On a ward system, so I've got Eagan and Rosemont and Inver Grove Heights. And then the other 6 commissioners take up the varying other communities across the county.
Word to Mary in the control room. Just wanted to let her...
I don't know exactly what that means, but if it means hook the guest and get him out of here,
No, she's having such a good time in there. I just wanted to let her know that we're down to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Never did that before, but it's, something that's tempted me for a long time.
So what do you want to know? Because I've got a few questions for you, too.
Okay. What'd you think of the 2016 turnout in the national election, for the national election?
It was, if you peeled it away a little bit, it's quite interesting. I don't know so much about national stuff, but I did look at the Minnesota results. And remarkably, Mitt Romney and Donald Trump got almost exactly the same number of votes.
And actually, we still led the nation in percentage of voters. Not very good, I thought.
Nearly 75% of folks across Minnesota voted. Nearly 90%, I'm told, in Dakota County. So if you're a little dismayed at 75% statewide, look here in town.
I didn't realize that, but that's very good.
The turnout was phenomenal here in Dakota County. But the presidential race was interesting because you had Trump get about the same number of votes, but Hillary got 200,000 less votes than President Obama did in
which
2012.
which is what happened nationwide.
Yeah, a lot of folks
Even
either
though
stay
she
at home
got
or
$2.5 million, $2.5 million, no, more votes.
I hope she
not
didn't
dollars.
get $2.5 million, but
Well, that's what she gets for a speaking engagement. But she'll have a lot of time for that now.
I think so.
And I am very much anxious to see what happened today. I hope Keith Ellison is the new chair of the DNC. I will be very disappointed if he's not, because we really need some new blood in there to activate the party. What did you think of the, and I don't know if you have been a guest at the Vikings in one of those two county booths, but
they're not, just so we're clear, they're not county booths.
State,
But,
yeah.
Is it the Metropolitan?
The Sports
Minnesota
Facilities
Sports
Authority.
Facilities
Yeah,
Authority.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I'm doing my best, Alan, to keep an open mind, but it sure looks crummy. I'm
I
glad the
wrote an
legislative
article.
auditor is going to take a look into it. He is thought well of by folks on both sides of the aisle,
yes.
and I look forward to seeing what he finds. But
I have an article I think is coming in the Pioneer Press within the next day or so, in which I called for the resignation of the two people, one of whom has been a guest on this show, because I started the article out, as I mentioned in another interview, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Thank you, Pete Seeger, for allowing me to use that. But the fact of the matter, it's the same kind of a boondoggle that give people a really bad impression of politics. And from what I see, it doesn't have a good odor to it.
yeah, well,
Now, this
gonna find out
governor,
more.
as ethical as he is, will truck no really impropriety. So we'll see.
Well, like I say, I think it really is beneficial to have the legislative auditor, because he is. I don't know if you've ever had him on this show, but Jim Nobles is somebody you should have
No,
on
I
this
haven't,
show.
as a matter of fact.
He is. I don't know how he's done it, but he's been in that position now for about 30 years.
Jim Carlson always spoke very highly of him.
And he's thought well of by folks on both sides. I mean, uniformly, you will not hear anybody criticize the legislative auditor and how he walks that tightrope. But I think he does it because he's just absolute. There's no question in his integrity.
We need some incorruptible people.
Yeah, and he's obviously, it's not just Jim; it's his office.
Yeah.
That they're just so well thought of. And they do a great and thorough job on a variety of topics and have a lot of interesting topics. The legislature, if we want a straight up fair answer, we know that he and his office are the right folks to ask for it. And then you can't really argue about the facts. You know, it's not like you get this debate over issues like global warming, or how we ought to fund transportation, or all these various things that come before us. And people will argue about the underlying facts. With the Auditor Nobles, you know that you're getting a straight up set of the facts.
The Capitol restoration, you're moving out just when it's being completed, and really 5. I have to keep her on her toes. I didn't even realize that time. What do you think of this fiasco over the paintings? The governor doesn't want these 2 paintings of the Civil War up in the governor's office or room.
Stuff. There's that, and now there's a debate over whether they're going to allow water bottles on the floor of the Senate, or whether you can drink water. And
that
who
was
cares?
ludicrous.
I mean, here the fact that we're even talking about it, I guess, gives it more regard than it should get. But most folks, when I'm out knocking on doors, that's the crap that drives them crazy. Pardon my language there, but it's just
true.
Why don't we focus on the substantive issues and how we can bridge those gaps and get things done? And instead, we're talking about which paintings are going to go up or whether there's water bottles.
I know that the Minnesota First was one of the really, really premier outfits in the Civil War.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they won a very important battle which could have turned the war. They lost 3/4 of their people in that. I think that has an important place in Minnesota history.
That is one of the spots. I still get choked up. It was a couple hundred years ago when school kids come up to the Capitol.
You were only a kid then.
I had dark hair.
Yeah.
But I would, when I gave tours, and it was, if I got a chance, I love giving tours for the school kids that come up there. And one of the spots I would take them was to the flag that the 1st Minnesota carried. And I'd tell them the story of the 1st Minnesota. And I'd generally get a little choked up as I was doing it. And, these 3rd graders or 5th graders are wondering why the old guy is crying.
It's an incredible story, though.
It's still moving to this day. But for their heroic acts in plugging that gap in the Union line, the course of the war could have been changed.
Absolutely.
So, in my opinion, they won the Civil War. A bunch of Minnesota kids.
And I think that prominence deserves display in
Absolutely.
My own personal opinion.
But it's
in the governor's office or anteroom or whatever.
I'm looking forward to seeing it in a prominent place, wherever it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking forward, it's an exciting time for Minnesota to have, that building symbolizes so much more than just a building. 115, 110 years old now, and it was in trouble, Alan. There were chunks of stone
Jim
that were
Carlson
falling.
brought some in here of things that fell off the building. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but they could have been hurt.
And it's been remarkably restored and should last for another 100 years now. But it's also much more accessible to folks with disabilities, and it's much more accessible to the public. It's going to be a dramatic improvement.
Earth to Mary.
Are you 2 minutes or peace?
We're having a good time. I want to tell you, this program would be nothing without the volunteers and the dedication of the volunteers and the people that make it run. I'm just a fixture sitting here, but they really make it go.
And don't take any offense to this, but when I come here, I as much or more look forward to seeing the nice folks that are making this ship run. I enjoy visiting with you for half an hour, but I love getting here early so that I can talk with everybody else.
Well,
who's
half an
around
hour
here.
is usually as much as anybody can take with me, but or so I've been told. A lot of people can't take that much, but
and yet you've been married for many, many years.
Married? Like a decade at least, probably longer. As a matter of fact, I said we're in this facility 4.5 years, and she corrected me after the last interview, say, would you believe 9 years? Well, I don't believe 9 years. But, she's right on top of those things, and so appreciated. Anyhow. Well, it's going to be interesting to have you in and talk about, in the future, what's going on in the commission and the new path you have chosen for your life.
Thank you.
And I want you to promise to potty train your new puppy.
He's doing pretty well. He is
good.
About 15 pounds of just rambunctious energy, but he's been a lot of fun. Good addition.
I don't want to ask if he's a rescue or not, but I hope that he was. But he probably wasn't, if he's a thoroughbred.
I'll tell you, though, as we've gone around, as I was going door knocking, it was so nice to see so many rescue dogs. And my brother recently got a greyhound.
As we have our third. We're talking to Commissioner Joe Atkins. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Come back again soon and tell us about it. Access to Democracy, signing off.
Thank you.